Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Elementary. So quite a few things went down in this episode, so let's break everything down. Obviously, this case initially started because this guy was recommended to Joan by Lynn, which is kind of interesting. It's always, I don't know, it's just funny to think about the fact that your sister's throwing clients your way. But essentially, this dude was like, oh yeah, there's this online friend, like, oh, we kind of have this relationship, like, that, it's kind of interesting because, like, I mean, in the long run of things, it's kind of Joan kind of throws out, oh, you might have gotten catfish. He's like, no, I tried to throw money at her, but she didn't want it, which is interesting because later on we end up finding out that Maria ends up being not a cam girl, but a financial dominatrix. So it's something I've heard of in real life too, being a thing. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, they want you to like embarrass them and humiliate them and kind of, as they kind of put it in the show, like legal extortion. And it's kind of interesting, like when you think about him saying that line of like, oh, like I tried to give her a lot of money, but she wouldn't take it. It's like, oh, because she only takes as much as she knows people can afford. So he probably wanted to pay her more, but it was kind of like, no, I won't take that much from you. So that's good. But I was like, that's so interesting that's what this is about, because I had no idea. I was like, oh, this is just a missing person thing. I was like, it is a little suspicious. Maybe it's just the fact that you come to Joan about it. Part of me was wondering, it's like, it's not going to turn into a Michael case or something, does it? Just because it's like Joan's office and everything, and just like obviously her board's over there with like everything related to Michael. So that was just all I thought was kind of interesting. But it wasn't what I thought the case was going to end up being, but that's what it turns out to be. There's also that whole black pill for you thing. I was like, what the hell is that? Because Sherlock like knew what it was immediately, and it turned, man, is that just a shitty thing. It's basically involuntary celibacy. It's like a bunch of dudes being like, F women, like, oh my god, we can't get laid, and just, oh, women are terrible, blah, 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 blah. It's the women's fault that we can't. It's like, wow. And they talk mad shit about people and stuff like that. That's what this entire site's about. I was like, is Sherlock and Watson really just gonna let this dude go when they get the information? And it's like, no, they made sure Homeland Security knows about it, because apparently a lot of terrible shit has come about because of this mentality of just like women hating and just this huge amount of misogyny. Like, no matter where you stand on things, it's like, you can't argue that those are some piece of shit human beings making arguments like that. Come on. I was like, wow. I kind of hope, I guess you could argue that probably something like that in real life exists, which is sad. I hope nothing like to that extent exists, but you make the argument it probably does. Like, like I said, a lot of stuff in this is probably based on some truth in some shape or form, based on some reality, but it's like, man, I really hope no one has a mindset like that, because it's not a mindset you want or should have, nevertheless. Because there's even that douchebag Kyle in this episode where he's going to go to this gym and shoot it up just because, like, it was to show them, it was to show Maria how much he loved her and everything. I'm like, what? Because apparently she worked there, but she had to leave. She went there, but she had to leave because the rates were too high. And it's just like, no, you have to find her. I love Maria. I said some stupid stuff because not to look all weak in front of the other guy. So I only said that because the other guy's online. It's like, God, you need some help, dude. Seriously. Like, I can't believe that's all a thing as part of this plot to this episode, which is just crazy. But then it turns out that basically it's not only her that got kidnapped, but there was a dude named Roman too, which also turns out that her and Roman are in a relationship. It's kind of like, okay, so turns out, oh yeah, can't forget about that either. There's a whole story aspect. The fact is, Kyle sent her something, and basically he was able to kind of clone her GPS, and he knew exactly where she was. That's why he came to New York, because he knows that she makes this trip or so every year. He's like, she made this exact same trip everywhere last year, because it's basically she was going to kind of like a convention type of thing. Was it like Magic Fest or something like that? She would go to, and she because she was very handy, she would make toys and stuff like that, and she sold them at those at that fest or whatever. And so he knew exactly where she would be. That's why he came to New York, even though he knew she was out of town, because he knew she'd be back soon enough, just because he knew her whole schedule and everything like that. I was like, wow. But it turns out that this is all about the fact is that her and Roman, because Roman's a blacksmith and she's very good at tinkering and making stuff, well, them two together, they can make guns that are with no serial numbers and untraceable guns. So it turns out that this is all connected to a gang that kidnapped both of them and forced them into making guns. In particular, it turns out that in actuality, they're actually being forced to train their replacements because everyone's like, we need to hurry up and find them because if we don't, it's going to lead to them dying. We end up finding out, though, one of the people behind this situation is her brother, which is crazy. Your own brothers. I mean, he probably didn't go after you directly. He went after Roman. He was one of the people that went after Roman, but still kind of got you by connection because he's probably the one that was suggesting like, yo, you get my sister. I'll take care of this Roman dude because the last thing you probably want to do is probably feel guilty about kidnapping your own sister potentially. I would hope so. I mean, I would hope you wouldn't kidnap her in the first place, but maybe that's the reason why he didn't kind of go deal with that situation directly. Oh man, like the whole search and rescue thing, it's like, no, they kind of skip over that a little bit. It's just kind of like okay, they find out from her brother where they are and just like hard cut to, oh yeah, they're in the hospital recuperating. And it's like, okay, with her brother, Maria and Roman will be able to take down this gang, So that was kind of interesting, just overarching plot of the episode. But another side of this episode is so fascinating is about Bell. He gets, he meets up with a U.S. Marshal who wants to recruit him for the Marshals. And Bell's kind of like, wait, what? And so now Bell's kind of thinking about it. He even talks to Chantal, which, like, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this the first time we've seen her subsequently since her... God, I'm blanking. That wasn't season 4, was it? That was season 5, right? That was like last season the whole thing went down with... her ex and like the condition she was in. Like, yeah, this is her first time seeing her subsequently since that, isn't it? I could be completely wrong. I feel like maybe she came up later on that season. I could have sworn the whole thing that went down with her ex happened closer to the end of the season. I'm not remembering correctly, am I? I don't remember. Like, this might be the first time we've subsequently seen her since then, but nevertheless, she looks good. I mean, I'm glad everything's okay. Like, I think last time we checked on her, she was still like in a hospital, but she was okay. But like I said, maybe I'm not remembering an episode where it's like, no, like we saw her again. But nevertheless, Belle starts wondering like, nah, I want to do it, but if I did do it, I'd have to go to Georgia for training. I'd have to leave everything. He's like, that's not a trip I want to make alone. She's like, are you asking me to go with you? Which is kind of like, and he's like, no. But just like the fact that you responded like that is because there's on some level you're kind of being like, maybe I would. He's like, I wouldn't ask you to do that. And she's like, well, if you did, I might not like completely like ignore you. He's like, wait, what? It's like, she's like, yeah, with my job and everything, I pull some strings. Like, I will go with you. But for him, it's like, that's kind of because he already was reluctant anyway in his own head. It's something, he kind of wants to go to. It's interesting, but then Chantal kind of puts it in his head like, oh yeah, like someone had to like set this up for you, confront some one person he figured, well, he did some going back on it. And it's like, oh yeah, it had to be Sherlock. And I think it kind of makes you go on when you find out what Sherlock's reasoning is. Because Sherlock, it's like, he's always admired Bell because it's like, yo, dude, you are a great detective. And the fact of the matter is you've proven that time and time again. For Sherlock, he's never really cared and stuff about like people he worked at with in Scotland Yard and stuff like that. They want to take all the credit, blah, 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 do whatever you want to. They're fine with saying where they are, absorbing the glory and stuff like that. But he never felt like that. The thing between him and Marcus is like, no, Marcus always does a fantastic job. Like he brings just as much to the table as I do. And the fact of the matter is you always go off and do your like thing, dude, because obviously like he handles cases even without Sherlock. But it's like Sherlock doesn't want him to just be stagnant where he is, because it's like you are too good to just stay here. Like he's like, obviously staying here wouldn't be the worst thing, but there's so much better stuff out there for you, because the fact of the matter is someone of your caliber could do so much good out there. Because it's like, he chose the Marshals because of who Bell is, personality, like who kind of which group fits his morals a little bit better. And he kind of came down to like, oh yeah, it's like the Marshal. Because for him too, it's like he knows, like, because one of Bell's main reasons for not wanting to take the job ended up being Gregson. Because for him, it's like, Gregson trained me. It's dad plus Chantal and his mom, so those are considerations as well. But it's also like he felt like he'd be stabbing Gregson in the back. It's like, this is a man who brought me in, trained me, got me to where I am. How can I just turn my back on him? But for Sherlock, it's like, but this is a great opportunity you can't pass up. But he was kind of like, no, I'm fine with like missing the chance, because for him, like, because Sherlock also brought up some interesting things too, basically being like, at some point in time, Gregson's going to like retire. Even me and Watson will probably most likely have to find a different like working situation once that happens, because Gregson's kind of the one that kind of gives them the pull and leeway to kind of do what they do. And who says the next captain is going to be all for it? So they'd most likely have to go to someone else to kind of really get a different, or kind of run. They probably have to operate a little bit differently, But what I thought was kind of really nice later on, Sherlock ended up going to Watson, and she's like, because she knew about it. She's like, oh, so you told him, he found out it was you, right? It's like, yeah. She's like, now I gotta actually kind of sit here and kind of actually think about it, because probably when it's all said and done, like initially it's like, oh yeah, obviously Bell deserves a different job and a greater job because he's a great detective, but at the same time it's like, oh, he's a friend though, and it's like I gotta have to start thinking about the fact is that he's going to be gone. And Sherlock's like, yeah, you kind of know all about that, because you literally change careers like people change clothes. And she's like, hey, and it's like it's so blunt, kind of true. Like, as we know, Joan has had a lot of career changes, not which in the end worked out in scheme of things, but nevertheless, I just thought that was kind of a cute, adorable moment. But nevertheless, when it comes to Bell, at the very end, Gregson is like, dude, I figured it out because someone visited me. It wasn't, Sherlock didn't even have to tell me the reason why you're not taking the job. He's like, you need to take this. This is a great opportunity. He's like, no, I want you to know, like, above anything else, I am proud of you, and got to pat someone on the shoulder and walks away. And you see the smile on Bell's face, because that was a go ahead he needed to make this happen. Because now it's like, go ahead and do this. Don't feel guilty. It's like, this is a great opportunity. Because if he waits around to the point that Gregson would retire, like he would be over, because apparently they don't take people over 35 is what the limit was, I think Sherlock was saying. So if he waited around that long for another opportunity, but he was like, oh, I know I was giving up. But it's like, no, secretly you want it, but it's just kind of like, you feel ashamed of wanting it so much. It's like, no, he shouldn't, it's like this is a position and you deserve it. You've deserved a different position before now, but this is something that's a right fit for you. And he's like, hey, I still got to go through training and put in an application form. Like, it'll still be, ultimately whether or not they decide to take me, but obviously they're going to take you, dude. So he does give Sherlock the heads up. It's like, yo, I'm going to be leaving in like 6 months. So, hey man, so you can get ready to kind of break the new badge in and stuff like that. So, but you see Sherlock looking at him leave, and it's just kind of like proud of him, And I was like, oh, that's like so beautiful. It's interesting too, because let's not forget, like, Sherlock and Bell have had their differences in the past. What was that? Was that like season 3 or season 4? The whole thing where Bell got hurt, and then him, like, he didn't want to work with Sherlock anymore, so he kind of even left his job there for a little while. But eventually they kind of made up and kind of got to where they are now. So like I said, it was kind of a sweet moment, because even like Bell was kind of taken back, like, whoa, you recommended this job for me? It's like, whoa, your reasoning for it? It's like, it's crazy, So like I said, it's kind of this heartwarming moment in this other side of the episode, which is kind of sad to think about. Like, oh man, Bell's going to be gone. Like, obviously probably going to be like at the end of the season, I'd assume. But I mean, with timelines for TV shows and stuff like that, you never know. I guess it also depends on whether this is like a straightforward season. So far, it seems like it's a pretty straightforward season. Like, there might have been like 1 or 2 weeks so far where there hasn't been an episode, but it hasn't gotten to the point where it's like, oh, it's taking a break. Like, we're like past what I believe is like the halfway point to the season. I know that they ordered more episodes for this season. I don't know whether this is longer than a typical season, which is like 24 episodes, I believe, or whether they were making it a shorter season and they bumped it up to 24. I might have brought this up in a previous recording, but nevertheless, either way. So, like I said, it depends on what they do with the whole timeline thing. Like, that 6 months may come quickly, it may come slowly. Like I said, I'm inkling more towards thinking like it'll probably be the end of the season. But like I said, we'll see where things end up. So, I'm very interested to see what actually goes down in the next episode. Also, there's that other little tiny side plot where basically Sherlock figures out that some lady was killed because, what is that device he called? I don't remember. A trebuchet, which is basically kind of like a catapult, which is like, I guess it's a specific kind of catapult is what he was kind of explaining at the end, because I was like, what is the difference between that and a catapult? The way you operated it looked like it was like a catapult anyway. Apparently, some people, I guess, who are smuggling drugs to kind of get them across, like from Canada to the US, are using a trebuchet to throw it, and basically it was kind of a bigger bag of one, and it hit a lady in the head and ended up killing her. And that's what he's dealing with at the end of the episode. He's like, no, I'm telling you, it's this. You need to handle this before there's more victims of this situation. I'm like, okay, it's always interesting, these cases that are kind of working in the background, I think are so fascinating. There's even that thing at the beginning where, like, Watson is taking his case, this whole case, that started this episode, and she's kind of like, yeah, the fact of the matter is, do you have any advice? He's like, yeah, there's the whole drag of like police work, you know, you kind of forget with the detective work, you kind of have to knock on doors, and she's kind of like, okay, yeah, there's that, but she's like, you got any other advice for him? It was kind of like, yeah, he's like, I think he talked about the fact is that, yeah, he can be lazy sometimes too, or something like that when it comes to cases and stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, you lazy. Yep, that sure fits you all right. Considering the fact is that he spends so much time on cases and dedicates so much time and brain power and just the way he operates when it comes to things. That he's like, yeah, sure, you lazy about anything. That's you all right, Sherlock. So I thought that was pretty neat. But nevertheless, that's all I really wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.